I don't really know about any rascals, but I think most guys would probably dream of this bunny girl senpai. Hello everybody and welcome to this light novel review. I'm Justus Stone and my channel is all about light novels, reviews like this one, news, and of course it's the home of the Light Novel Podcast. So if you're a fan of light novels or maybe you're just starting to get interested in them, make sure you hit subscribe and that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future light novel content. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing volume number 1 of the Rascal Does Not Dream series. This one, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. It's written by Hajime Kamoshida with illustrations by Keeji Mizoguchi. It's released officially in English by Yen On with a translation by Andrew Cunningham. If you want to pick up your own copy, I've got links in the description down below. In Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, we have main character Sakuta Azusagawa, who is an average high school student who is in the library one day when he sees something very strange. His senpai, Mai Sakurajima, who is a childhood actress currently on hiatus and attending school, is in the library, which itself is not too strange, but she's in a bunny girl costume. And what's even stranger is that despite her being attractive and famous and in a bunny girl costume, nobody seems to notice. Now, of course, Sakuta is just not going to let this one go, and as he and Mai begins to get to know each other, he finds out that basically she is finding that more and more people just don't notice her. It's like she's completely just disappeared from their world. And of course, she's pretty scared and doesn't understand what's happening. Well, Sakuta's actually had experience with strange syndromes that he refers to as adolescence syndrome. In fact, his own sister suffered from it, and even Sakuta's got some scars to show for this odd syndrome. And so he decides to join forces with Mai to try and find a solution to her problem. For a light novel with a obviously supernatural component to it, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai is surprisingly a slice of life, very sweet and at times funny light novel. The whole adolescent syndrome does not play as big a part in this book as what I thought it did. But I'll be honest, because of the characters and the relationship between them, I really was actually pretty glad that we got a lot more of that slice of life stuff. Both Sakuta and Mai are very different characters, and yet their differences seem to complement each other incredibly well. Sakuta is this very dry, at times crass individual who says whatever is on his mind. Zero filters, zero F's given. There is kind of a reason to all of this, and that is one thing that I will say about the book that I really enjoyed, was that the backstories that are provided to these characters really do complement the kind of people that they have become. They don't seem to just be a tsundere for the sake of filling an archetype. They don't seem to be, Sakuta does not seem to be this sort of crass, view the world in a slightly less than optimistic way just for the sake of being a clone of, say, Hachiman from, My Youth Romantic Comedy. Instead, because of the things that his sister went through, because of what he went through trying to help his sister, because of how it affected their family, he basically sees that a lot of the societal rules that we have are garbage, that they're actually incredibly destructive to individuals. This is a guy who threw his cell phone into the ocean because he realized that it was just absolutely no good and has just never bothered to get another one. On the other hand, we have Mai, who of course has grown up as a child star. There's been pressure, there's been demands, people wanting her to do things that at times she wasn't comfortable with. She's at times felt used, at times felt that people were just being fake and phony with her to gain her favor because of her stardom. it's made her a prickly individual, one who says not always what she means, and in fact often can come across as a bit crass and off-putting. Which is funny because even Sakuta kind of says that to her bluntly at one point, as Sakuta will. And yet this main character who speaks his mind completely and this female character who guards most of what she thinks have the greatest dialogue and this incredible chemistry that makes every moment that they're together very, very enjoyable. As I said, I was surprised at how much humor there was in this book and how much the slice of life moments just felt very sweet and endearing and made me care about these characters. I thought that the supernatural component of it would play a much larger part, as it typically does in these type of light novels, and yet really it just seems like this catalyst to bring these characters together in this particular volume and to give them a common enemy, if you will. But it really does pay off because from an emotional point of view as a reader, I found myself invested in my finding a solution because I cared about the character, but not only cared about her as a character, I cared about Sakuta as a character with her. It became pretty, a synonymous idea in my head that these two needed to be together and that neither one really was going to be as good a character without the other. And so it created that kind of an emotional investment. It was also refreshing after reading a lot of light novels where it's like, we need to save the world, we need to save the kingdom, we need to save our town. To have something that was really small and personal, that was just like, it's my life, I just need to help fix my life. It was something kind of nice just to have these two characters trying to work together to come up with a solution because of something that was happening to one person. Whether it was going to change the world or hurt the world or not didn't matter. It was just about that one person and then how the other felt about them that drove them forward. It was kind of nice. It made the book feel a little bit smaller and more intimate in a lot of ways. In terms of the adolescent syndrome itself, well, this thing kind of has a theme that you gather based on what happens in the book. Now, the book does kind of dip its toe into the quantum mechanics section of science to try and give a little bit of a justification or explanation for it, but I was kind of glad that even the science nerd of the whole book was kind of like, this might be stretching things even beyond, the crazier areas of science to actually think that this thing has a scientific explanation. But what it does seem to do, and this is where I kind of thought that the theme of this was very interesting and poignant, even though you really don't get it hit over your head, it's much more subtle, is this whole idea that what we do to ourselves because of the impressions of others can be incredibly destructive. When others have negative views of us, that's hurtful. But when we allow those views to become a part of ourselves, when we live our lives in a way that makes those things true, that is when the true destruction occurs. And that seems to be kind of the underlying idea of at least this volume. I don't know what gets explained or how things get figured out down the road. I haven't watched the anime because I was waiting until I could read the book. I'm just going by what I see in this first volume. Now, if I had to have any little quibble or, criticism of this book, it would probably be that it is incredibly Mai and Sakuta focused. Now, that works, obviously, because I loved their relationship, but it meant that there were times in the books that characters were introduced, certain events happened but weren't really resolved, that you really got the sense that the author was just throwing breadcrumbs because they knew that in volume 2 or volume 3 or volume 4 that would matter. So there definitely, if you're looking for a book that has this really fleshed out world and lots of really interesting side characters with deep backstories, well, that hasn't happened yet. I do, from taking a look at the covers of books down the road, it's pretty obvious that we're going to have a lot of these side characters get explored in far more depth. I'm thinking kind of like what we see in, say, the Monogatari series, where each of the female characters kind of has their moment in the spotlight. I kind of think that's what's going to happen with this series going forward. Again, I haven't read more than this one, and I haven't watched the anime, but just based on what I see and what I know of light novels, and, you know, what usually means when they throw a different girl on every single cover, you can kind of put it all together about that's where we're going. But overall, that's really a minor complaint, because really this book was about Sakuta and Mai's relationship. It was the whole reason of the book, and honestly, it was the most entertaining part of the book. There were times in here that I really just thought the book was sweet. There were lots of times that I had a good laugh. It was an entertaining and fun read, and yet there were moments that gave me pause to think as well. So it wasn't all pure fluff, but at the same time, it wasn't all just pure dire, oh my gosh, horror, blah, blah, what's going to happen kind of thing. So it made for a nice, very enjoyable, and at times enriching reading experience. Overall, I really enjoyed this one. Definitely want to be reading the rest of this series going forward. In this video, I want to say a special thanks to Mirage, New Valoric, Mitchell Von Regen, and Yun for their contributions on Patreon, as well as the support of all of my patrons who helped me to buy books for this review series, as well as to pay for hosting for the Light Novel podcast. I also run several light novel websites, so all in all, my patrons are the ones who are helping that all of these light novel projects that I'm involved in can continue, and we can reach as many fans of light novels as possible. So for my next review, I'm going to be returning to a series that I haven't touched in a very long time. I have only read the first volume. I'm picking up this second volume because, well, we're doing a light novel podcast on the series, but also because I am just seeing so much love for this series anime adaptation that's currently airing that I just had to read at least the second book. And that's going to be My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. That'll be my next review. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me in this review. I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.